I know this is a bit late, but better late than never. BF Emperor is the newest story unit to come out in Grand Summoners Global. Just like his OG version, there was a ton of hype around this man. And some may say he was a bit overhyped, but let's talk about it. His skill is pretty lackluster with only 20 art gauge. His art is now giving you a buff in correspondence to what position he's in. Of course, he has the position mechanic back. His true art gives everybody 10 arts per second for 8 seconds and also reduces enemies' damage res by up to 120%, plus makes everybody's equipment CT speeds a bit faster. He has his passive, which is if he's unaffected by a stats element, he gets 7 arts per second, and he has this positional mechanic. In terms of his slots, he has a 5-star magic, 5-star defense, 5-star physical, or a 5-star support. Of course, you're going to want to take this guy up all the way up to LB7 because that allows him to use his true weapon, which is the first 6-star true weapon in the entire game. It's called Rune Sovereign. This thing gives you more magic damage and you're able to reduce the enemy's magic res by 30% every time you use it. It's a stackable skill on this thing. But the main thing here is the passive buffs up Emperor's damage by 80%. This is absolutely the best in slot for him, and this should be in his 6-star magic slot all the time once you unlock it. For 5-star defense, it's really up to you. Anything that you're fighting up against, just use a defense item that's countering the boss. Then for the last item, if you're using 5-star physical, I'm gonna be honest, it's a bit of a, it's not really that good. But if you're going for sustain, then go for more arch-shin items. If you're going for nuking, then use more damaging items. And then for the 5-star support, of course, AoE arch-shin items is king here. Same thing with nuking, type 0, stuff like that. Now, this is the first team that we actually came up with. By the way, I said we because Sleepy is here helping me with this imp showcase since, of course, he got him. But the first thing we took him up against was the Memories of the Comet, which he's going to be type advantage in because, of course, he's in the 3rd slot. Emperor's position mechanic, just like his old one, is one of the coolest things about him and also one of the worst things about him. It sucks in multiplayer because you can't really decide like what spot you want to be in. But here we go. Right here we got the Rune Sovereign buff, we got the crit res down, and we got all of Hoka's craziness happening too. Yeah, you're gonna see some crazy deeps with this man Emperor. If you saw that, that's 715k per hit right there. If you look at the damage charts, surprisingly Senki actually dealt the most damage here. Now, one thing I will say about this Emperor is that even though this guy is completely cracked, he's insanely strong, insanely good, and he definitely has a place in the meta, he has some really big flaws to him, and I feel like you instantly notice that as soon as you start using them. Of course, he has a lot of good stuff too. The equip CT down that's very specific, which by the way does stack with the equip CT down from Star God Lisa's, which means that you can make your physical, magic, or support items just insanely quick with Emperor and Star God on the same team. However, I feel like Emperor's entire game plan is kind of a little bit hindered by his kit. As you see, damage really isn't a problem with this unit, but the problem comes from his true art. The fact that he's only arch-shinning for about 10 seconds is kind of crazy. If this was like a 20-second buff, 15 seconds even, this would be a bit better because it would allow you to use the rest of the kit a bit more freely. Because right now, Emperor is best used just spamming his art and his true art. His super art really never comes out because there's no point. He does have the equipment CT buff, which does state if you're unaffected by a stats element, you get equipment CT speed. And if you guys been playing GS, well, you know if something is conditional like that, it usually stacks with everything else. However, that's not the case for this boy Emperor. That equipment CT buff does not stack with universal equipment CT buffs. They count as the same buff, surprisingly. So there's really no point in using that super art unless you just want to reduce Emperor's equipped CT speeds by half. But definitely the best way to play this guy at the moment is just by spamming his true art and spamming his art, and don't really let off the gas, especially if he's one of the only arch shinners on the team. I feel like you're just gonna be sitting there spamming his true art and you're never even gonna be able to use his art just because, I mean, he's not gonna be able to get it back fast enough. Not to mention too, I really don't know what they were thinking with giving him a 20 art gauge skill. That is so low for an ascended character. I understand that he buffs up like his own paralysis and freeze res whenever he uses it, but like, dude, come on, at least 30, 40 even. Regular Emperor does 50 art gauge and he's an awoken unit. Why is his ascended counterpart giving himself even less art gauge? It makes no sense to me. Even with all those negatives being said though, this character is not bad. He's one of the strongest characters I've used in this game. Is he like, on the same level as Hoka and stuff like that? Absolutely not. They did do Emperor a lot of justice, but they didn't really make him as broken as he was back in the day. But he's still going to be an insane unit, high S tier character here that is going to be on every single mono light team, and I could see this guy just being thrown onto any team where you want to make use of that huge damage res debuff. And as long as there's no other type B arch shinner, well, you can use him as an arch shinner as well. Not to mention too, the equipment CT buff is insane. Oh, by the way, absolutely use this guy alongside Star God Lisa. They're a match made in heaven. They're literally made for each other, it seems like at times. That was Emperor and all my thoughts with them. Overall, a pretty good unit that has some flaws. But hey, thank you all for coming out. Tell me down below what you all think about Emperor. Also, huge shout out to my boy Sleepy for allowing me to do this showcase. Without him, wouldn't have been possible. Oh, and one more thing before you leave, don't forget to drink water.